Good evening, and welcome to my presentation, Protecting Constitutional Rights During the Criminal Justice Process. I would like to start off by telling you about a true story of an injustice that occurred. A young man was accused of a crime. He ultimately would plead guilty to that crime and serve 3 years in prison, but all for a crime that he did not commit, and all because of the recommendations of his court-appointed lawyer. This young man was mentally disabled and did not understand the court process and how it works. He was scared into thinking that if he fought his case, that he would end up getting more time in prison. His life will never be the same. That young man was my brother. My name is Loretta Caviero, and I'm glad to be here with you on this 18th day of January to be able to explain to you how this happened and what we all can do to prevent incidences like this from ever happening again. Now, I would like to ask you to think about the most valuable asset that you own. It's not tangible. What I am talking about are your constitutional rights. The greatest benefit of being a citizen of the United States of America are the rights afforded to every individual under the Constitution, and especially when it comes to the criminal justice process. Defendants are guaranteed specific constitutional rights to protect them. It is generally assumed that once the person has a lawyer appointed to them by the courts, that they have a legal representation afforded to them under the Constitution. That is not always the case, and it definitely was not the case for my brother. The entire point of certain amendments added to the Constitution was to ensure that every person accused of a crime receives a fair process in the criminal justice system. There are deficiencies in the legal representation aspect of the court system that impedes constitutional rights and creates disparities for minorities and the poor in our community. In order to reduce these deficiencies, Congress must pass criminal justice reform on a national level and implement a federal program that provides resources and experts to assist the defense team in presenting their case. We as citizens must call upon Congress to act and put these changes in place. This will benefit all of us, whether you're accused of a crime or not, because it is protecting the constitutional rights of everyone. We need to ensure that these rights are preserved, whether we need to use them or not. But what if you had to? What if you were accused of a crime? Could you afford a good lawyer? Approximately 90 to 95% of all criminal cases are settled in plea bargains, and of those, 80 to 85% were represented by court-appointed lawyers. These lawyers are appointed because the defendant cannot afford a lawyer on their own. The most important and valuable right in the criminal justice system is legal representation. Being assigned a lawyer and having legal representation are two different things. Just because a lawyer is assigned by court does not mean that the defendant is getting proper representation. As explained by Cullican first, the issue of attorney representation demonstrates another way that social class may contribute to discrimination in the criminal justice system. The Sixth Amendment to the United States Constitution guarantees the assistance of legal counsel to defendants facing criminal charges. Defendants are entitled to legal representation. If they cannot afford a private attorney, a public defender will be provided. Criminological research demonstrates that the ability to afford a private attorney significantly impacts the outcome of criminal cases. Often due to time constraints and lack of funding, court-appointed lawyers are unable to mount a reasonable defense for their client. Most cases are resolved with a plea bargain. Plea bargain is a deal struck between the prosecution and the defense that requires the judge's approval. It usually gets the defendant less time in jail and less fines in exchange for a plea of guilty. Most assume that if a defendant takes a plea, then they are guilty. This is not always the case. But what would make an innocent person plead guilty, you might ask? Well, according to an article published in the New York Times, the reason that innocent people plead guilty are numerous. Sometimes defendants are convinced that if they will be convicted anyways, and that they're convicted of a more serious crime if they go to trial, and they might even get more time in jail. A defendant should not be scared or feel that they are unable to fulfill their constitutional rights because of lack of money or fear of going to trial and getting a harsher sentence. The truth be told, some judges do hand out harder sentences after a trial. What can be done to stop this and protect the constitutional rights of the accused? It will take drastic means on a national level to address this issue. A plausible solution would be criminal justice reform on a national level. Congress needs to implement a federal government program that provides resources and experts to assist the defense team in presenting their case. The federal government established the Criminal Justice Act in 1964 that established a system that provides lawyers and compensates them for representing the defendant. This is a good start. However, this does not help people who are charged on a city or state level because this is for federal cases only. And this program also does nothing to help with resources for defendants. This act should be expanded or a new one created to incorporate the needed changes. This should include access to experts, paralegals to help with research, and access to government databases and testing procedures. Achieving equal justice and the right for fair representation of court for every person accused of a crime is vital to preserving all of our constitutional rights. It is also the right thing to do ethically because it will decrease the disparity of treatment towards lower income and minorities in the criminal justice system. We must not let the procedures in the criminal justice system erode our constitutional rights away. We all must petition our legislators to make these changes. In conclusion, our constitutional rights are the greatest possession that we own. There are aspects in the criminal justice system that are degrading those rights. This is creating disparity in society for minorities and people of lower income. When innocent people are pleading guilty because they feel they have no other option, this is a sign that the current criminal justice system needs reformed to give a person accused of a crime a fair chance to defend themselves. Inadequate legal representation corrodes a defendant's constitutional rights and creates disparities for the disadvantaged. This issue cannot be fixed at a local level. Federal government intervention is needed, and Congress needs to expand or create new programs to focus on the needs and resources of the defense team. The federal government is responsible for protecting the constitutional rights of every individual. It is time for a much-needed change in the criminal justice system to preserve everyone's constitutional rights. You might think, what can I do? I am just one person. But altogether, we have a collective voice that can be heard, that must be heard. We all must stand up to preserve our constitutional rights. You don't want the next story to be about you. I would like to thank you for watching my presentation, and I also have included a list of my resources that I used in the presentation. Thank you.